The ink on my father's death certificate wasn't even dry when my stepmother, Evelyn, handed me a black plastic trash bag and a legally binding eviction notice. "You have exactly 24 hours to get your garbage out of my house," she sneered, her eyes gleaming with a kind of predatory joy I had never seen before. She held up a piece of paper, a last will and testament, that explicitly disinherited me, leaving his entire multi-million-dollar estate, his business, and our generational family home solely to her. I was about to walk away with nothing, completely defeated by a woman who had only been in our lives for 3 years. But Evelyn made one catastrophic mistake. She forgot about the dusty, obsolete Sony camcorder buried in the attic. And she had no idea that my father had been secretly recording her. To truly comprehend the sheer evil of Evelyn's master plan, you have to understand how she infiltrated our family. My father was a brilliant, hardworking man who built a highly successful manufacturing company from the ground up. But after my mother passed away from cancer when I was in college, he became a shell of his former self. He was lonely, vulnerable, and desperate for companionship. Enter Evelyn. She was 20 years his junior, a former pharmaceutical rep with a dazzling smile and a completely fabricated backstory of personal tragedy. They met at a grief support group. Looking back, I am entirely convinced she targeted him. Within 6 months, she moved in. Within a year, they were married. And almost immediately, the isolation protocols began. Evelyn was a master manipulator. She started subtly driving a wedge between my father and me. She would accidentally delete my voicemails on the home phone. She would schedule lavish, weeks-long vacations on the exact dates of our traditional family gatherings. When my father was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's disease, she weaponized his illness. She fired his longtime private nurse and insisted on taking over his care entirely, claiming no one else could be trusted. What she was actually doing was building a fortress around him, cutting off his access to friends, his business partners, and most importantly, me. By the last year of his life, I was only allowed to see him for brief, heavily monitored 1-hour visits. He always looked heavily medicated, his eyes glassy, his speech slurred. Evelyn would stand in the corner of the room, her arms crossed, watching my every move like a hawk. Pattern interrupt, foot through 4. But there was one visit, just 3 weeks before he died, where Evelyn briefly left the room to answer the door. My father's hand suddenly shot out and grabbed my wrist with a terrifying, desperate strength. His eyes cleared for just a fraction of a second. He pulled me close and whispered frantically, "The attic. Look in the attic. The red box." Before I could ask what he meant, Evelyn walked back in and he instantly slumped back into his chair, playing the heavily sedated patient. When my father passed away, the grief was suffocating. But Evelyn didn't even pretend to mourn. The day after the funeral, she summoned me to the grand living room of our family estate. Sitting next to her was a sleazy, discount-rate attorney I had never seen before. "Let's make this quick," Evelyn said, sipping a glass of expensive wine that used to belong to my mother. "Your father updated his will 2 months ago." The attorney slid a document across the coffee table. I read it, and my stomach dropped. It revoked all previous wills. It claimed that I had been estranged and unsupportive during his illness, and it left 100% of his assets, properties, and liquid cash to his devoted, loving wife, Evelyn. "This is a forgery," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "My father would never write this. And this signature." "Oh, it's completely wrong. The R in his name is slanted the wrong way. He always looped his R's." The attorney smirked. "Your father was suffering from advanced neurological decline. His motor skills were severely impaired. The signature was witnessed and notarized by 2 independent parties. Unless you have millions of dollars and a decade to fight this in probate court, which you don't, since your bank accounts have been frozen, this document is ironclad. That's when Evelyn handed me the trash bag. Pack your things. If you're not gone by noon tomorrow, I'm calling the sheriff to have you arrested for trespassing. I spent that night in a daze, packing up 25 years of memories into cardboard boxes. The house felt cold and hostile. At 2 a.m., exhausted and broken, I remembered my father's desperate whisper. The attic. Look in the attic. The red box. I quietly pulled down the folding stairs in the hallway ceiling and climbed up into the pitch-black, suffocatingly hot attic. I used my phone flashlight to navigate through decades of old furniture and holiday decorations. Finally, shoved in the very back corner, underneath a pile of old winter coats, I found it. An old, faded red shoebox. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside wasn't a document or a letter. It was my father's old Sony camcorder, the exact same one he used to film my Little League games in the 90s. Next to it was the charging cable and a single unlabeled mini DV cassette tape already inserted into the deck. I snuck the camera down to my bedroom, locked the door, and plugged it into the wall. I held my breath as the screen flickered to life. I hit play. The video started with static, and then the image cleared. I gasped. It was my father. But he didn't look like the drugged, slurring man from the final months. He looked pale and exhausted, yes, but his eyes were sharp, focused, and burning with a fierce, quiet anger. He was sitting in his home office at his desk. The timestamp on the bottom corner indicated it was recorded exactly 3 months before his death, 1 month before Evelyn's fake will was allegedly signed. If you are watching this, my father's voice crackled through the tiny speaker. It means I am dead, and it means Evelyn has shown you her fabricated will. Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't look away. I don't have much time, he continued, glancing nervously at the office door. She thinks I'm asleep. No, she's been crushing sleeping pills into my tea for the last 6 weeks. She thinks my mind is gone, but my doctor secretly warned me about her medication tampering. I've been spitting the pills into the potted plants. He leaned closer to the camera. Let this video serve as an official, legally binding codicil to my last will and testament, recorded on this date in a sound state of mind. Evelyn is a monster. She has physically isolated me, abused me, and she brought a man into this house yesterday to force me to sign a blank piece of paper under the threat of withholding my heart medication. I refused, but I know she will forge my signature. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He had documented the abuse, but would a video be enough to hold up in a strict probate court? My father, ever the meticulous businessman, knew exactly what the courts would require. A video alone might not stop her, my father said to the camera, a grim smile forming on his lips. Which is why I outsmarted her. 2 weeks ago, I had my trusted corporate attorney, Arthur Vance, draft a new, irrevocable living trust. I smuggled it out of the house in my dirty laundry, and Arthur's courier picked it up. The trust leaves everything to you, my child. Evelyn gets absolutely nothing. But more importantly, he held up a small, clear plastic zip-top bag to the lens. Inside were 2 distinct blue pills. These are the unauthorized narcotics she's been slipping into my food. I have hidden this bag inside the hollow base of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Take the pills, have them tested, have her arrested for elder abuse and attempted murder. The video clicked off, returning to static. I didn't sleep a single second that night. At 5 a.m., while Evelyn was dead asleep in the master bedroom, I crept downstairs to the hallway. I reached under the heavy wooden base of the antique grandfather clock. My fingers brushed against something plastic. I pulled it out, The bag of pills. I packed the camera, the tape, and the pills into my bag. At 8 a.m., I walked out the front door without saying a word to Evelyn. I drove straight to the law offices of Arthur Vance, my father's old corporate attorney, the man Evelyn claimed had retired. When I walked into Arthur's office and showed him the camera, the old lawyer's eyes filled with tears. "I knew it," he whispered. "He told me he was going to leave an insurance policy. We have the trust. But this video is the guillotine." Arthur didn't just file an injunction to stop the probate of Evelyn's fake will. He called the district attorney. He called a private investigator. For the next 3 months, we operated in total secrecy. The pills were sent to a forensic lab. They matched a lethal black market sedative. The investigator dug into Evelyn's past and uncovered a horrifying truth. My father wasn't her first victim. She had been married twice before in different states. Both husbands were wealthy, elderly men who died suddenly under mysterious circumstances, leaving her everything. Evelyn thought she had won. She moved her trashy friends into our house, bought 3 new luxury cars, and was aggressively trying to liquidate my father's company. She ignored the court summons, assuming her cheap lawyer would handle my pathetic attempts to contest her fake will. She had no idea the storm that was coming. The day of the final probate hearing arrived. The courtroom was packed, mostly with Evelyn's friends who were eager to see me legally crushed. Evelyn sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing an offensively expensive designer black dress, looking bored and annoyed that she even had to be there. The judge, a stern, no-nonsense woman with 30 years on the bench, looked down at her papers. "We are here to finalize the estate of the deceased. The widow has presented a last will and testament. Does the defense have any final objections before I rule?" Arthur Vance stood up. He didn't have a stack of papers. He just had a laptop and a projector. "Your Honor!" Arthur boomed, his voice echoing through the silent room. "We do not simply object. We assert that the document before you is a fraudulent instrument of theft, manufactured by a woman who systemically abused and poisoned her husband." Evelyn scoffed loudly. Her cheap lawyer rolled his eyes. "Objection, Your Honor. This is theatrical nonsense without a shred of evidence." "Oh, we have evidence," Arthur replied coldly. "Your Honor, the defense submits Exhibit A, a holographic audiovisual testament recorded directly by the deceased, exposing the plaintiff's crimes." The judge looked intrigued. "Proceed." Arthur hit play on the laptop. The projector beamed my father's face onto the massive blank wall of the courtroom. The room instantly went dead silent. Evelyn's smug smile vanished. Her jaw physically dropped. My father's voice filled the room, loud, clear, and damning. He detailed the isolation. He detailed the forced medication. He explicitly revoked Evelyn's status, and then he held up the bag of pills on screen. I watched Evelyn's face. The color completely drained from her skin. She looked like a cornered animal. She started hyperventilating, grabbing her lawyer's arm, whispering frantically. Her lawyer, realizing he was suddenly an accomplice to multiple felonies, physically pulled his arm away from her and scooted his chair back. When the video ended, Arthur didn't stop. "Your Honor, following the instructions on that tape, we recovered the narcotics. We have the toxicology reports confirming they are illegal sedatives. We also have the legitimate, irrevocable trust executed by the deceased. And finally..." Arthur gestured to the back of the courtroom. The heavy double doors opened. 2 police detectives walked in, one holding a warrant. "We have the district attorney's office, who have authorized an immediate arrest warrant for the plaintiff on charges of felony elder abuse, forgery, wire fraud, and attempted homicide." The courtroom erupted into absolute chaos. Evelyn screamed, a shrill, desperate, terrifying sound. She tried to run toward the judge's bench, shouting that the video was deep-faked, that I was setting her up. The detectives didn't hesitate. They tackled her to the floor, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists right there in front of the judge, her cheap lawyer, and her horrified friends. "Get your hands off me! I own this town! I own that house!" she shrieked as they dragged her out of the courtroom. The judge banged her gavel, though you could tell she was immensely satisfied. "The fake will is struck down. The estate is immediately released to the trust. Court is adjourned." Evelyn didn't just lose the inheritance. Because of her past victims coming to light during the criminal investigation, she was sentenced to 45 years in a maximum security federal prison without the possibility of parole. She will die behind bars. As for me, I moved back into the family home the very next day. I threw all of Evelyn's expensive furniture and clothes onto the front lawn and hired a junk removal company to haul it to the local dump. I took my father's company to new heights, honoring the legacy he built. And that old Sony camcorder? It doesn't sit in the dusty attic anymore. I bought a custom glass display case for it, and it sits right in the middle of my father's old home office, a permanent reminder that the truth always, eventually, comes to light. If you ever find yourself backed into a corner by evil people, remember this story. Sometimes, the greatest weapon you have is the one they never knew existed. If you felt the absolute satisfaction of watching Evelyn get exactly what she deserved, smash that like button and subscribe for more intense, true stories of ultimate revenge. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you found that tape? See you in the next video.